Hello and welcome to my tutorial series on how to get a model from Blender into Planet Coaster. I know there are a lot of tutorials already out there explaining the basic stuff, how to get your model into Planet Coaster. But if you're like me, it can be kind of really frustrating trying to get it done with the tutorials that are, or better said, already exist. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can actually start when you're completely new to Blender with a cube and, well, changing it up, down, scaling it up, down, rotating it, anything like that. And what the hotkeys are a little bit. I will eventually place under the video in the comments, I will place a list of all the keys that I personally have put in a row, because it can be a little bit frustrating seeing documents on how to use certain keys and stuff like that. So I personally have made a list for myself. I could show it. These are the most basic things that you'll use when it comes down to using Blender. I'm going to move this away again, and I'm going to try and explain what kind of keys we got and such forth. These series will be around 15 minutes because YouTube only allows that. So let's get started. Well, I've already opened up Blender, and it's a simple scene with a camera, a light, and a cube. Now I'm going to throw this all out because I want to really start from scratch. So start by literally putting a cube in. So one of the hotkeys is B. With B, I can box select. So I'll just select everything and I'll press delete to delete it out. I have actually changed a couple of my settings for myself. I think Blender automatically starts off with left click is your cursor. So that's this little thing. As you can see, I put it for, right click is default. I put it on left because it's easier for me. But you can always change it around. If you go to File and you go to User Preferences, and you go to Input, as you can see here, you get a hell of a lot of options and stuff and such forth. I've changed it actually because normally I think it's on the left. I've changed it to right. So it's select for me with the right mouse button, and left is my cursor. I haven't changed anything of the standard keys of rotating a camera and such forth. Like I said, Blender is quite big and it's difficult to learn for some people. I'm just showing like what a tiny little bit of Blender and how it works. So, well, you can always change it if you want to. I'll go out of this for now. These are also quite important. Most tools and stuff are already on the bars. As for that, you've got object mode. I've got no object at the moment to go to edit mode. My standard panels to see solid, textured, material, and render. But because I don't have any lights in my scene at the moment, render won't work and material won't work neither. I'll need to place a light to be able to use that. Another thing is I'll start off with getting a cube in. There are a couple of ways of doing that. One of the ways is just clicking on the create and clicking on the cube, or I can do it very simply. Let me put on my plugin to show you. By pressing Control, I think it's Control, sorry, not Control, Shift A, it brings up the Add menu. Well, we're going to start off with just placing the cube in the center. Well, or not. I forgot to mention the cursor has to be in the center, because otherwise it will be dropped on top of the cursor. So I'm just going to do this, delete this out, or do one step back, like that. And I'm going to center my cursor by pressing Shift S. And you'll see cursor to center. You can also do it to grid. You can also do it to the selected. So if I got a cube selected, it will center the cursor to the cube. But we're not going to do that at the moment. We're just going to center it to the center of the grid. There we go. Now let's bring up the menu again. So I'll do Shift A, bring it up, and I'll place a cube in. Now the basic things to be able to move it around is, well, it's really the arrows to show which way you want to go up. If you're not exactly sure which color does what, there's always a under N. As you can see here, there is Y, I think that is X, and Z. So there is also a hotkey to actually move it around. If I press G, I can actually move it around. And in my case, because I changed my mouse, I have to press the opposite. So for me, it's right button. If it's the default Blender, then it's left. So I'll press right. It'll go back to where I last moved or started off with, not moved it. But I can also do G to move it around, and then press X or Z, or sorry, Z, yeah, or Y. And I can move it along that part of that grid. So I can move it along the Y, I can move it along the X, or the Z. Now in my case, I'm actually not going to do anything with the cube, then bring it only up above the grid. As you can see, it's not really centered at the moment, but I can always move it up a little bit like that, place it there, a little bit more into the center. So let's bring this up. There we go. Another thing, I can change my things under N. So translate, this is rotate, and scale. Let's start off with scale, or sorry, rotate. So press R, that's the hotkey, and we can literally rotate it any way we want. But we can also decide, well, guess what? I want to do it on the Y or the X. I can rotate it around. And in a lot of cases when I'm modeling, I press Ctrl to make it more stuck to the grid as you would in Planet Coaster. So to turn it around that way, you can see that it literally snaps. And if I let loose of Ctrl, you'll see it'll be more fluent when turning around. So let's put this back. Another thing before I forget, selecting stuff when you have multiple objects. So let's add in another cube. There we go. And as I said before, it'll snap to where we have placed the cursor. In this case, it doesn't really matter. Let's bring it down a little bit. Now, to be able to select certain or two things, objects, especially in edit mode, what we'll go into most likely in the next series, the easiest way is by pressing Shift. I guess it doesn't want to do it at the moment. Sorry. I think it only works in edit mode. No. Or not. Okay, something has gone totally wrong. Let's go back to object mode. Scale it up a little bit to where I want it. And normally it would, so I must be doing something wrong at the moment. Oh no, it's one of my plugins that acts up, I think. Okay, well, this is at the moment really weird because it should be doing it. But I can always change in between these two. Normally, there we go. So I don't exactly know what just happened, but for one or another reason, it was bugging out on me. There we go. With a shift, we can actually select both of them. Control will come back to later, and Alt has also its own function, but we'll be talking about that most likely in the edit mode. So hopefully I've explained a little bit about, I haven't explained about scale, I think, but I can also do that for Y, Z or I, scale it around the way that I want, or I can just scale it up by pressing S and going up or down. Well, for now, I'm going to leave it here because this explains a little bit, hopefully, the basic stuff of being able to translate or move your cube around, scale it up, rotate it, anything like that. Eventually, we're also going to talk a little bit about our our scene and everything is inside the scene. So as you can see, we've got two cubes at the moment. Under this, we got the data object. We'll go into that also later. But for now, well, this is more or less what you can do. In the next series, we'll talk a bit more about the edit mode and how we can change certain things if you're completely new to Blender. Otherwise, you can skip through to the part where we actually are building our model, coloring a model in, or better said, UV unwrap. We're also going to save the layout from the UV. That'll be explained in the third video, hopefully. I hope I've helped you at least out with understanding a little bit the basics of it. Like I said, tools on the side, we can always rotate or scale or such forth, or we can do it under in. We can also use local. It's another thing we'll talk about later on in the series. Yeah, until the next video, thank you for watching.